Were you aware of Mark Cuban's comments before the game when he said Kevin was the only superstar on this team, and how do you react to that?
Hold up. He's an idiot.
Oklahoma City has won the Western Conference Championship.
Made us believe you're the real MVP.
LeBron James has helped crown Miami.
Open your pocketbook and pay the luxury tax that it would cost to sign James Harden to a max.
It's the weakest move I've ever seen by a superstar in the NBA.
I mean, this team is literally tanking right in front of us.
It was time to start the rebuild, and Russell Westbrook just really didn't fit that type of timeline.
There was a time when the noise here could shake the ground.
For the tie.
It wasn't built with billboards or luxury tax signings. It was built with patience, with belief, with sound. But the winds of change wear away at everything. And when the collapse came, the world didn't mourn it. They just stopped listening. Back in the 2010s, the Oklahoma City Thunder were the paragon of organic roster construction. They had a core with more talent than you could find in a lottery, and somehow those egos never clashed. Instead, they harmonized, a symphony born out of a selfless rhythm, echoing across the quiet plains of Oklahoma. This holy ground of joyous basketball and relentless passion just off the beaten path went by Loud City. Whether you were a Thunder fan or just a basketball fan, you felt it. You felt it when they pushed the Kobe and Pau Lakers to 7 games as an 8 seed. You saw it in their triumphant march through the Western Conference before any of them were old enough to rent a car. This was the next dynasty, and they did it the right way. Unfortunately, silence comes for all songs, even the ones we wish would never end. First, a bad trade wounded them, then injuries slowed their rise, and finally, a historic free agent transaction snuffed their flame out. They fought back for a couple years. Russ wore their anger on his sleeve. Paul George did all he could to fill the void. That run wasn't a full revival, but it was a damn good epilogue, better than a eulogy anyway. Sam Presti dealt George to the Clippers for some young guys and a treasure trove of picks, while Russ got sent off to Houston for an old guy that didn't fit their timeline and some more picks. That first season with Chris Paul, Shea, and the new core wasn't that bad, but it wasn't meant to last either. CP3 wanted to contend for titles. OKC wanted to restart. It was a loss that went unmourned because no one wanted to look back at what was no longer there. The picks piled up, the losses blended together, and the world stopped watching until a young small market team built through the draft and developed from within made us look at the shell of what was left. Most early regular season games are born in anonymity and die in obscurity. This one was supposed to be no different.
That's beyond bad, and it's unfortunate that anybody even had to watch something like that transpire. That was painful. I thought it was a typo.
The Grizzlies were building, clearly on the rise, but not established yet, and OKC was in a transitional phase, the second year of the official rebuild. Memphis was expected to win this one. Even as much as a 30-point beatdown wouldn't have garnered a second look, but this wouldn't be a 30-point beatdown. It was something much worse, a 73-point disaster, the largest win in the history of the regular season. On a League Pass game in front of a sparse FedEx Forum crowd, there was no more Durant, no more Westbrook or Harden, but today the coroner delivered the death certificate and the funeral was carried out by faceless youngsters in jerseys too big to fill in front of empty pews. In reality, it was only one game, one loss in a season dedicated to losing. There were the seeds of hope for those brave enough to look. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was growing every year. Lou Dort had flashed some elite defensive potential, and every game that passed was filled with encouraging graphics pointing out the copious draft capital Sam Presti had accumulated. But man, it was really tough to look at. Those fans decked out in team shirts had just witnessed the potent combination of talent and fit that only results from perfect team building. Who knows? Maybe that quiet genius in the glasses would do it again. Maybe he'd find gem after gem, and he'd hit on every lottery selection these blowouts earned. But so what? There would always be another team rising, waiting in the wings with more cap space and a more picturesque location. Loud City always felt too good to be true, and maybe it really was. Small market teams don't get generational superstars, and Southwest cities weren't built for iconic duos. Of course, we fell in love with Oklahoma City and their mystifying rise. It was a shock to the system, a punch to the establishment, but that system always wins. And somewhere deep down, buried beneath our defiant hope, we knew that. Sure, it hurt to let go of the dream, but at this point, it hurt more to keep believing. There was an undercurrent of hope whispering just beneath the surface. It wasn't enough to bring the masses back to the audience, but the ones really watching down in Bricktown got it. Now there was Jalen Williams, the fluid forward out of Santa Clara with a soulful game. Josh Giddey, the unorthodox point forward with a gift for playmaking. Lou Dort was better, but people didn't know it yet, and he could shoot it now. And then there was Shea. Shea wasn't just a rising star anymore. He was here, like 31 a game here. It was only there when you listened for it, when you put down the distractions and sat with the TV, but it was there, emanating from the screen. You just had to watch the games. The Thunder went 40 and 42. The whole roster made strides. That coach no one knew anything about was starting to look like a real developer. When the play-in rolled around, people agreed there would be no shame in losing to the more seasoned Pelicans, but they didn't flinch. They battled through the highs and lows.
Basketball players. There's Lou Dort. Oh, Dort.
Shea hit big shot after big shot. Giddey turned in a near triple-double, and Lou Dort made New Orleans pay every time they left him open. They lost to the Timberwolves in the next game, another young core, just slightly further along in their rebuild, but somehow it didn't dampen the optimism. If anything, it felt like a mirror, a reflection of what Oklahoma City could become, an echo of what they once were. Here was another team from another overlooked place, with a climate few envied and a logo few recognized, and they were building something, building it the right way, the same way Oklahoma City once had, and the same way they were trying to again. Maybe the dream hadn't died after all. Maybe they just hadn't realized it yet, because at the end of the day, they weren't even supposed to be here yet. Hearts were defrosting, slowly warming up to a new version of the same song they once loved. It wasn't time to print the shirts just yet, but drawing up designs didn't feel so ridiculous anymore. That whisper had grown. There were conversations happening now, no declarations. The people of the Southwest aren't that bold, just observations spoken out loud. But when the season started, they got that confidence to scream out that subtext. It was happening. The Thunder were on their way back. Things were different now. There was no denying that. Their new star was from Toronto, not DC, and the co-star was from Arizona, not Los Angeles. The new rim protector wasn't an imposing warrior. It was a soft-spoken sniper. Even the arena went by a different name. But when the crowd got going, it felt like it did at the very beginning. Those kids were filling those jerseys out, and these fans had watched them grow into them. 57 wins, another 30-point per game season from Shea. Jalen Williams introduced himself. Chet Holmgren made his debut and lived up to every ounce of the hype. A pack of hungry dogs barking back at small market invisibility.
Go ahead, Mark.
sharing the ball like they had played together for decades, adapting to each other's strengths, covering up each other's weaknesses, and doing it with a reckless, radiant joy that felt foreign to professional sports. This wasn't about contract extensions, brand deals, individual legacies. They were having fun. They were laying it all on the line, night in and night out, and they were doing it for each other, for the fans that embraced this new wave of young kids, for the front office that trusted them with the keys before they had proven they could drive, for the city that opened their hearts once again, even after enduring the kind of pain that can leave you hollow. When the playoffs rolled around, they got to see the same team they pushed past in last year's play-in, and they obliterated them. And with every run, every loose ball won, and every breakthrough made, there was an eruption, a visceral reaction from the crowd that propelled them forward and shook our TVs. The next round was a tougher test.
Now steps back to his left. Over Gildas Alexander for three. Tough shot.
Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and a Mavericks roster built to surround them with shooters and defenders. They split the first 4 games as SGA and Doncic traded masterpieces. And then the Mavs stole one at the Paycom Center. Going back to Dallas for Game 6, this group that was still getting their feet wet would have to do one of the toughest things in the league: win on the road in an elimination game. From the opening tip, they fought. They took the surges from the crowd in stride. They weathered runs and started their own in response. Shea bailed them out with tough buckets whenever they needed it. J-Dub made play after play, and Chet punctuated the effort with a dunk on the receiving end of a SGA lob. They were up 1 with 10 seconds to go. Luka kicked it out. PJ Washington's shot was altered and it fell short. It looked like they did the inconceivable and won, but there was a whistle, a foul called on the contest. PJ Washington hit 2 of the 3 free throws, and it was over. But once that initial sting subsided, the pain was gone, and the apprehension was too. Something about losing to the Mavericks and their European superstar in a closely contested series didn't hurt all that much. The people in the stands knew it now. Those jerseys fit just fine. No one was scared to say it anymore. Not their neighbors, not on talk shows, and not in articles. There was a real basketball team back in OKC. Some characters had exited the story. Most notably, Josh Giddey had been traded for an all-NBA level glue piece. But for the most part, it was the same core they saw take all their bumps and bruises. The same kids that chased the rhythm with wide-eyed passion were growing up now. They weren't fumbling around anymore. They were dancing, harmonizing, weaving their talents together and turning the sound into a symphony. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was one of the most feared players in the entire league, a cold-blooded scoring machine that was making plays on both ends of the court. Jalen Williams was even more polished and more mature than he already was, with the same explosion. Chet had become the prototype for a futuristic big, and Lou Dort was one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire league, and now they had dangerous depth. Hartenstein was threading passes out of the short roll. Caruso and Cason Wallace were tearing possessions away, and Aaron Wiggins was saving basketball. The rest of the country had turned on them now. They weren't the new story blazing through monotony. They were the standard now. Comment sections screamed that the hype was overblown, that Shai was a dubious foul baiter, that they hadn't done anything yet, and they'd receive a wake-up call in the playoffs. But those fans in Oklahoma City didn't care. This was their team. Let everyone else think what they want. They were watching the games, and they knew. This year, 57 wins wasn't enough. The Thunder won an astonishing 68 games. They finished with the second best net rating in league history. They picked you up at half court with a stable of frenzied defenders. They ran the floor with the speed of a stampede and the intelligence of a hive mind. And in the half court, they operated with the poise of a seasoned contender. When the play-in ended and the seeding was set, they were up against that same core that announced their fall, the Memphis Grizzlies. The Game 1 crowd flooded the seats, almost unanimously adorned in matching t-shirts, ready to blow the roof off the place. They were watching a collection of homegrown talent fully capture what they were capable of. With each deafening wave, the lead grew, and when the final score was read, the Thunder were ahead by 51 points. relevance, and Paycom sounded just like Chesapeake. There's still a lot left that needs to unfold in these playoffs, and Oklahoma City is far from the only squad with a destructive roster and a unified culture. We aren't here to make any bold predictions or dismissive statements. We're just relaying what we heard and illustrating what we saw. This wasn't supposed to happen. The stars already aligned, the clouds already cleared, and when the Thunder got their shot, they missed it. We all anticipated a steady and lasting descent. We were so confident we looked away, assuming the forces of nature would take care of the rest. But the spirit lived on. It lied in waiting, standing by for the right star, the right cast, and the right coach. It breathed in empty gyms, in practices nobody filmed, and in players nobody scouted. And down in the 405, you have to shout to have a conversation on game day. Spread the word. Loud City is back.